Okay, the next thing we're going to do is just progress on. There's a file on the screen actually. I just thought it was useful. You'll be seeing it. It's in colour. That's a little thing that you can practice putting your texture on doing. We're going to make a new project here. So you go New Project. If you want to save everything into the project, you can say Save the project as right now. So I'm just going to call it Part, P-A-R-T, Save. And anything I do will be saved in that file. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to just quickly run through the Artec turntable. So it needs to be plugged in, and you need to make sure that in your setting in Windows that you've actually got your Bluetooth turned on. So it says connected. So I've got here two devices that are connected, my mouse and the turntable. When you go into Scan tab on the Artec software, if you actually want it to use the turntable, which is for Space Spider, you need to choose turn on turntable. We're just going to whiz round, not perhaps complete this. We haven't got a lot of time now, and you've seen the basic process. But if you wanted to do this and you'd like to make sure that you get the edge, really useful to just get a little plastic cup lid. Mine's off a milk bottle. And now we're going to just see what happens when you use the turntable. So, like before, you aim your scanner, you put it into preview mode. We're going to look at the screen all the time. And in this case, we can see the part on the screen and we get it roughly in the middle. You click up, and what you'll find is that the turntable will start as soon as you start scanning. Okay. If you move away, the turntable moves backwards, beeps until you come back over the part. It finds out where it left off, and then you can actually see, for example, you can see I go round inside here. Making sure that you've moved the scanner, just keeping the scanner fixed. Some people think you should just put it on a tripod or something. It doesn't really work. You need to be able to get round all those little crevices and places on your part, get into different angles on the part. If you miss something, you can just move away purposely. It comes back. You can point at the part. It picks up, and then you can come round the part here. So we can get round a lot of this very quickly and easily. Don't forget to move over the top to get down inside the other bases. Okay. And the other good thing is that the base has got a lot of texture on it, so it's going to help keep things in line. When you go to turn it over, important that sometimes it works well with just two halves. Sometimes you might have to take a different viewpoint. If you do a different view, make sure the part doesn't move. So this is useful on thin parts as well, that if it was a very thin blade, you should actually stand the part on its side, prop it up with some modelling clay or something, take a scan that goes all the way around 360 degrees from the top to the bottom. So here, it helps you get pieces that you may have missed. But what it also does, it makes the software understand registering the two halves together. Just imagine doing two halves of an egg. It has a bit of a job trying to work out where to do those two halves of an egg. But if you go round here, you can turn the scanner around, don't forget. Different orientations. Make sure you get all the parts that you want. Stop the scan. And then, if you want the bottom half of your shape, you can turn it round on the side, do the next scan, come here, start scanning, and then move round. And again, making sure that you've got lots of the things in view, keeping it green, try not to go too close. If it starts to go red, move away a little bit. And the other thing is this part has been sprayed with some white paint to make it easy because it's reflective. We can scan reflective parts, but it's easier if you could actually add a little bit of powder, like talcum powder, a spray, or even white paint. Okay, so there's our 3 bits of scan. They're a little bit noisy, like I said before. If you're not going to use the scanner, remove the power, remove the USB. Put your scanner very safely on the table. It could be on a non-slip mat if you want to. So let's get on and actually do the next part. So the next part is quickly to run through this shape and get it into some form of order where we want it to work. We've understood the basic processes and the other things, so all we need to do is we can close scan if we want to, or the easiest way is just click autopilot. Click OK to the message. Do you want to do all the scans? I do want to do them in this case, but it's important that actually if there was something you didn't want to do, don't press select all, just press next. In this case I do want all of them, so press next. Answer the question. So I've got a good base and it's got good geometry, so it will ask you about that. We've seen there you've got good or bad. I've got good. I've got lots of texture on the base, so I can say I've got good texture. Is it hard to scan? It's got a little bit of noise on it, okay, that's why you see this spikiness. Just remember that any reflection gives you points outside your shape, and when you come and look at the shape closely, they're called outliers. So you can see a little bit of reflection around the part here. It looks a little bit worse if it's in solid mode. I quite like to put it in points so I can see what's going on. But you can do it over solid if you want to, so you can choose. Okay, so we just go on. What size object do we want it to be? Wood screw up to medium. Well, this job's probably about 7 or 8 centimeters across, so we'll choose medium. Do you want all the holes and things filled in watertight? Actually, I don't. I'd like to just fill by radius. And what size radius? I might want to specify, say, 5 millimeters, so you can override it. Model resolution, leave it as it is. Polygon count, let it work it out itself. Texture, in fact it's a mechanical part, so I don't need any texture at all really. So that's to say the resultant model doesn't need texture. Don't forget I'm using texture for tracking and global registration. Press next. Do you want to do some editing? Actually, I do. So we can see here it jumps into the editor. You can turn the things on and off as you wish. In these parts here, I'd like to get rid of the base area. We can all remember the quick way to do that, to go Control key, select a piece of base, wait for it to compute. Takes a moment or two. There we go. Press erase. There's some bits around the outside. We're not really worried about those at the moment. Don't spend ages cleaning them up. Here, same again. We can say piece of base here. Press erase and move on to the last one and piece of base there. It may have been a good idea to use base removal, but sometimes you need the base, so just bear that in mind and then press next. So what will happen, it says, do you want me to try to do it or do you want to do it? Well, I'm going to say have a go automatically. I can see it's tried to make a good job automatically. A couple of the square pieces aren't quite in line because it's a cylinder. So what you can do is you can always go back into here to do the manual alignment. You click off, you can look at your parts here. I can see in that first group there's a couple of bits not lined up, so we can ungroup them. You can say here, you can choose each piece as you go along then. So you've got this one is if you want. Interesting point here is that this piece of scan has got a shift in it. This could have been when I was misaligning as I went round. Could have been a good idea to do a global registration first with the base. We can always stop and go back through this. But one thing that's quite neat here is that we have got this complex align. You can actually look at the shape and go, I think this piece should be here. And press align. And with a bit of luck, it will move it back nearer into position than it was. You may actually see another piece of it a bit out of line. So we could actually come here and say, still, I want this piece to be in line here. Press align. So you can see it's very easy to be able to try to correct some of the faults that you may have occurred by misalignment when scanning, not paying attention to the screen. The second piece I want here, it's near to where I need it to be, so all I need to do is press best fit alignment, so I can press align. It's always useful to have a few mistakes because it helps you understand how the software works and it helps you work out how to correct them if you want to. So you can say alignment here. And last but not least, we've got this piece. And you could move it away if you want to. You can remember, you can hold down the key, you can move it out the way. You could say this piece needs to go on the side here. Now, in this case, it's highlighted it, so you need to move it to see where you're going. I can say this one's over here. And then I want a third part, so there's somewhere away from these two parts, which probably somewhere down in that hole here. Then I can say align. It would have aligned where it was, but again, just pointing out that you've got this ability to do it. You now can press apply, or you can press next. It's the same. What will happen now, it will run the global registration for you. Outlier removal is detected there's a lot of erroneous reflective points. Remove most of those points around the outside. You can see the scan's a lot cleaner. It's performing a fusion. Because it's a space spider part, it will perform a sharp fusion. Fusion's almost done. We'll be able to see that in a moment. Small object filter was performed straight afterwards, simplifying the mesh. Model's ready, so we now got our part. There's a few bits where the scratch marks and things are on the bottom of here, but we've got a very good usable mechanical model. Obviously it's saved and you can export it, you can orientate it. What we'll do next is we'll just make a little video up to show you a couple of the orientation features. Okay, so we've just made this part, space spider part. We know what we can do with it. We can decimate it, we can do other things, but I just wanted to point out those things that I put to you before, saying about the construction functions for CAD. So if you're a CAD person, here's just a quick insight of how this thing works. So what you can do is you can use the construct function for either just finding something to orientate your model with, or you can use it to try to build more construction elements that you can export for CAD. So within here, you've got similar brushes to your editor brushes or defeature brushes. We also have this function called the segment brush. It works on an idea of sensitivity based on an angle of the facets that it clicks on. So if you actually come here and hold the control key down and click on this base, what will happen, you see it will work out where it thinks the similar triangles that create this area. So I could use this very easily and say what I'd like to do is fit a plane primitive. We've got different types of fitting algorithms. Expanding is probably the quickest, easiest to use. There's instructions on the bottom and in the manual, as we said before. Always remember, you can get to the manual with the help. Okay, so here we go fit. And what it'll do, it'll analyze this and it will create a plane. So this is a CAD element. So actually, if I choose this and roll it around a little bit, you can see it's a plane. It's got a center line that you can attach to or use to reference other things to. So first thing I've done is choose a plane. The next thing I'm going to do is perhaps choose the cylinder that maybe bounds the center of this hole, or you could use the cylinder of the outside. It's entirely up to you where you would like your reference for this part. Maybe you may be a person that wants the outside. So again, use our segment tool, hold down the control key, make the brush a bit smaller, click on the outside, and what you'll see is that it's selected this area. So now what I need to do is I need to actually say make a cylinder. Now the cylinder, we can actually set its actual radius. So once it's set a radius from the scan, you can change this if you want to, and smart height evaluation will make it extend to where the selection is. So if you'd like it to be further and bigger, you can say fit cylinder. Here we go, fit cylinder, and here we've now got a cylinder, and if we turn off our mesh, you can see we've got these two entities. So we could now just select these all on their own and use them under the editing tools for precise positioning. You remember in rough positioning we could click 3 points and try to orientate the shape. Here, if we use precise positioning, you can use the CAD elements to help you align the shape. So what we could do is we could say, right, I'd like the plane, and what I want it to do is move the plane to the origin. So it moves the center of the plane to the origin. If you'd like it to be any other point, you could say, actually, I want the cylinder to be moved to the origin. So you can attach different elements by choosing these buttons on the end. Then all we need to do is we actually need to say, right, I've moved the cylinder to the origin, but it's still disorientated. And I'd like the cylinder to be aligned with the Z-axis. So you can press align here. You can constrain the planes and the cylinders to help you align the shape to a position that you may want to export your job in that particular orientation. Another function of the CAD construct tools is that you could actually start selecting other elements. So what we could do is we know actually that our cylinder is in line with Z. Okay, so we could now come here and say choose segment to the inside and hold down the control key. And you'll see that the sensitivity of this is huge. So therefore it's selected far too much. You can actually bring that sensitivity back, deselect, try again, and you can see now that it's selected just some of the area. If you wanted to get more area, you can change to the other tools that you require. So like 2D, don't select to go through. We could select a piece more within here to give us a better fitting of our cylinder to this particular area. If you've got the option where you can see it's selected too much, then exactly the same, we can hold down the control key and the alt key, and this time you can unselect some areas. So the tools work very similar to using the erase or the defeature tool. So you would choose an area that you want it to do. Let's just try to take these bits off the bottom, and then we can click to turn the part around, 2 mouse buttons to move it a little bit, hold down the control and alt. Therefore what we're doing is we're making sure that it only picks up the area, not into the radius at the bottom. So control alt, maybe rub a little bit more of this out, and then just perhaps turn it round and have a look at the front edge to see, make sure it's done this. And what you can do is then say, I'd like this cylinder here, and I'd say fit. Now smart height evaluation, it will fit the cylinder like this. Okay. Now once you've got this cylinder, if you wanted to, you can actually constrain it. So the idea behind this is that you can select different elements, okay, cylinder 1, cylinder 2. So what you can do is select here, and you could say, right, what I'd like it to do is I would like this cylinder number 2 maybe to be coincident with cylinder number 1. So select cylinder number 1, and you can do it in the list, or you can select it on the side. And what we actually can see is that we chose these and they're both pointing in the vertical direction. But all we need to do is click on the cylinder, and you've got your constraints. So what we can do is you can make it parallel to something, you can make it perpendicular to something, you can set an angle, you can make it coaxial to another position. So select the axis or a normal to be able to go to. So what I can do is I should be able to select cylinder number 1, and we can therefore constrain those. If you wanted to put other parts on here, very easy to do. We could say, right, using maybe a 2D brush, we could come on the side. You could paint this area on the side if you wanted to. You could fit a plane on here, so choose plane, fit plane, and then you could go around to the other side, choose another one, fit a plane if you wanted to. And likewise, you could try to come in here. So you could probably say, okay, I'd like this area maybe to be a plane, and you don't have to use the automatic selection or segment tool. So you can just come in here, zoom into an area you want, and you could say, I'd like a plane, fit a plane, and it will put a plane through that base area. Okay. The next thing that you might want is a plane on the front. So you could come in here again, make your brush smaller, choose this, maybe choose a piece on the front, move along to the other side, put another plane there. Notice that in this case it didn't actually fit the plane all the way across. So we could actually turn this off. You could come in here and say I'd like it to select here, maybe along here, here, and you could even move into the top and say including this. And what I'd like it to do is I'd like it to be an exact fit of those shapes. So here now you can see it's put a plane. It has gone through all of those. It hasn't made it square or aligned to any particular point. You could use your constraints to do it. But the key thing with these type of elements is that if you wanted to, when you finish creating the elements, I haven't done them all obviously, you've got the ability that you can come in here and you can say I'd like to export these objects as CAD. And if we choose the CAD objects, it asks you've got multiple, so I'll put them in one file for you. And then what you can do is you can rename it as whatever name you want to give it. And you've got the choice of step, IGES or XT format in Parasolid. Obviously they're not solids, but they're surfaces and you can use them in your CAD for reconstruction. So that's a little tiny insight into just a couple of the tools using planes. We could actually unselect that. It may be that you're a person that prefers to use sections, for example. So what we could do is you can always use the measure tool. We've got cross sections. You can choose where you want it to be parallel to any particular plane. So because we rotated it, I'm going to say parallel to the XY plane. Where on the plane would you like it to be? Just hold down the control key and, that's to put, it says you can create an element on there. What I need to do is just click on the part here where I want it parallel to, and it puts the part on. You can see we've got this feature that you can actually put labels on if you want to. So it is able to make labels and just put a label that you want to do. Maybe it's a note for somebody. Okay, so you can say it's here. Once we put this, it will scale to the bounding box of the whole area, which is most important because in the previous version you had to scale this to make it cross-sectional with the part. Here we can actually come in and define the number of planes we want. So you can type in by the arrows, or you can actually use your number keypad or numbers on your screen. So I'm going to say I'd like 15 planes, and then you can set the spacing. I put in, let's say, 3 millimeters, and you can say calculate. What will happen is it will work out the cross sections through the model. Here we are. So you've got a series of cross sections. You can see the bottom wasn't totally flat where it made that section. You could adjust the parameters with them if you wanted to. But the most important thing is that if you save these selections, you can select them at any later time and you can export those out. And you have the choice of a CSV file, XML file, or DXF file. If you actually have got SolidWorks on your machine, which is a CAD product, it does give you the option to export to SolidWorks. So these are just a few of the little bits and pieces that you can use. And the measurement tools work with all sorts of bits and pieces that you could think to do. So it might be easy that you were in, I don't know, jobs with skulls or bones, and what you wanted to do, what you want to do is select something new to do. So you can actually unselect these if you want to, click on here, reselect the model, and if you came in here, you can't snap to the center of a hole because it's not really a hole, it's a mesh, but you could very easily click very closely to it and you could take some dimensions off of here. So just by visually clicking to where you want it to go, we've got options to measure as well. So hope you find this a bit interesting, and happy learning.